Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for stopping by today, and if this is your first time here, my name is Grace and on this channel I share sewing tutorials. So today's tutorial is the sewing aspect of how to sew a base corset for your corset dress. The pattern drafting and the cutting tutorial is the previous one before this, and if you've not seen it, I'll drop the link in the description box for you to check it out and proceed with this tutorial. Also, if you're yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly do so now and click on your notification bell to be notified when I drop helpful tutorials like this. Don't also forget to like, share and comment on this video. Thank you. These are the pieces that I'm going to be making use of for the base corset. I have two pieces for the front, one for the main fabric and one for the lining. The one for the main fabric, I doubled the interfacing that I put on it, and I have 4 pieces for the back, and I already ironed interface on them too. So for the cups, I cut out 4 pieces for each side, leaving half an inch seam allowance around them, and I've also ironed interface on them. And for what I'm going to be using to make the cup, I'm using the wadding or breast pad, and when I cut it out, I make sure that there is no allowance around it. So I'm going to take out this front panel now, which is the main fabric, and I'm going to be creating boning channels on it. So to do this, I'll get the midpoint at this downside here and also the midpoint at the upper part, and I'm going to draw a straight line across that place now. So that's going to be where the middle boning is going to stay, and from that middle I came out by 2 inches on both sides, and I look for the midpoint of where the cup is going to be sitting by folding it like this. Then I'm going to draw slanted lines across them. So when it comes to the way you want your bonings to be, you can be creative about this and just use the kind of boning lines that you want. So I'm just using the one that I think I want for this particular dress. So yours can be more than this if you want. And also on the back, I'm going to be creating channel lines too. So from the midpoint, I'm just coming in by 1 inch and I'll create a straight line there. And from that first line, I'll come out by 4 inches and create another straight line. So if you want your home boning channels at the back to be more than this, you can also do the same. So I'm going to be using a Reggiline bone, which is sewable for this corset, and I also have strips that measures about 1.5 inch wide, and I already ironed fusible interfacing on them to make them strong. So that is actually totally optional. Now to fix my boning, I'll measure my strip on the fabric to see if it's the same length, and I'll place my Reggiline boning in between. Then I'll cover it up like this, making sure I leave about half an inch up there and also down here. So I just measured my boning with the strip that I have in my hand, and I'll place the boning in between the strip like this. So make sure you cut out the strip that is enough to cover up your boning and still have some spaces left in case you are using the one that is bigger than mine. So I'm just sewing the boning in between the strip now on one side, and once I'm done doing that, I'm going to take the boning and place it on the channel side that I created like this. That channel line that I created, I'm going to place it on this side and sew it directly on the same line that I just sewed now, that same first line. Then after I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over like this and give it a top stitch. So when I flip it over, it's going to be standing directly on that line that I created for the channel. That is why it's important to sew the first by the side of the line. So this is what I have, and I'm going to do the same thing too on the other boning channels. So after doing this, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the back boning too, and then for the side that is going to be carrying the loop or the highlights, I'm going to be using the double boning method. So just watch me as I do this. I'm going to be using both a plastic boning and a Reggiline boning. So after sewing it the normal way, after sewing my Reggiline boning like this, I'll pick my plastic boning, which is a little bit smaller than the Reggiline boning that I'm using, secure the edge with my lighter, and I'll pass it in between my line boning and the main fabric. I hope you understand this. So this is just to give that side strength, so that we won't have this folding effect when you are trying to lace up your loops or highlights. So this is a method that I usually use to make that area very, very strong. So this will strengthen that area actually. So after doing this, then I'll go ahead to start working on my cups. So this is why it's important not to throw your pattern papers away, because you are going to be needing them for the direction of the cup. So I'll place 1 and 2 together like this on the correct side, which I use the arrow to mark on my pattern paper, and I'll pin it together. I'll do the same thing for the other ones too. We have 4 pieces, both fabric and lining. I'll do the same thing, and I'll go ahead to the sewing machine and stitch with 1/2 inch on those areas. So after stitching, this is what I have. So this is the cup covering that we are going to be making use of. Then I'll use my tailor's arm to iron these seams open, so that it's going to lay very flat on the cup at the end of the day. Now for the wording which I am using to make my cup, I will also do the same thing, place my patterns on them to know the direction, and I'll place them together, making sure that the side that is going to be ironed is together on one side. I hope you get that. So I'm just going to place them on each other slightly like this and sew them down on my sewing machine. So because I don't have a sewing machine that can overlock, I'm just going to be using my manual sewing machine, and this is what I have. Also, that's what I have on the cup covering. So I'll place them together, making sure that the middle aligns. I'll take my tailor's arm again, and I'm going to use my iron gum the wording to the cup covering. So after doing that, this is what I have. Can you see that it's gummed together already? So now it's time to fix this cup on the remaining part of the corset. So I'll make sure that I place the right sides together. The part that is going to the middle should go to the middle, and the one going to side should go to the side. So from the midpoint, I'll use my pin to secure my cups around that place all to the end. And I'll do the same thing for the second cup, and go ahead to my sewing machine and sew this all the way around. After I've done that, I have something like this. So can you see that it came out really nice? I also did the same thing on the lining, though the lining doesn't have the wording cup. So for the back pieces, I already have strips that I cut out for the loop. So these strips measures about 2 inches each. Then I'm going to be creating intervals on that area that is the center back. I'll create intervals at which I want to put those loops. So after creating the intervals, I'll pick each of those loops, place them on that side in a U-shaped manner, and use my pin to secure them down on each of the marks that I made. So you can use as much as 2 inches interval, 3 inches interval, depending on whatever you want. So just go ahead and pin them down in a U-shaped, or you can just do this directly on your sewing machine. So after pinning them down, this is what I have. I'll go ahead to the sewing machine now and give them a top stitch on each of the loops. So after I was done, this is what it looks like. I'm going to join both the front and the back pieces of the main fabric together using 1 inch allowance that I gave it when I was cutting out this fabric with the pattern paper. So I'm going to use 1 inch allowance to sew that. And I also did the same thing also on the lining. I joined both the front and the back pieces of the lining together. So I'm just cutting off the excesses that I have on the side. Then after this, I'm going to be fixing more bones on those sides that I just joined. So this is important so that the waist snatching is going to really come out very well when you are wearing this. So I'm just placing a side boning on this. So I did it for this front place just the way fixed my boning earlier, and also we do it for the other side where the joining is. So this is just to give those sides strength. Then after that, I'm going to be placing both the main fabric and the lining together, right sides facing each other like this. And I'm going to sew from one middle to one end and the other middle to another end, making sure I sew on the half an inch allowance that I added to this. And I'll also sew the sides. So I'm sewing this side, making sure I sew in those loops area. And when I turned it to the other side, guys, this is what I have. So I have ironed this, and what I also did when I was ironing this is that I used hemming gum in between the lining and the main fabric so that I will have them gummed together and it won't be shifting. So for the down part of this corset, I have a strip here which measures like 2 inches wide and very long. So I'm going to be using this strip to cover up the end of this corset. So I'm just trimming off the excesses at the edges first to aid my closing it up. So I'm going to be using that strip there like a bias. I'll place it on the wrong side like this, and I'll sew it with about half an inch to the end here, and I'll flip it over to the other side and cover it up like a bias. So after doing the first stitch, this is what I have, and I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over to the right side like this once and twice so that I'll be able to cover up all the rough edges. So this is just me covering up the rough edges and using that strip as a bias. So this is actually a good method to use to finish up the edge of your corset base whenever you are doing that. So lastly, I'm going to be adding a modesty panel to the back of this corset base. So I'm going to be sewing this modesty panel directly on the back because I want it to be together. So I'll just give it a top stitch beside that last boning. So that is all about the making of this base corset, and I recommend that you stick to this channel if you want to know how I made this into a full corset dress, from how I draped the yoke on my client's body to how I placed the skirt on her to get the back waistline, to also how I covered up the cup area using the lace placement method, and also how I beaded this dress. So subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss out.